Start with the devastating news out of the state of Colorado. The Denver Nuggets, their star guard Jamal Murray, tore his ACL yesterday or 2 nights ago. Just a devastating crush in that loss to the Golden State Warriors. This is a huge blow, a devastating blow to the Denver Nuggets. And the real question is, how does this impact their title hopes? And to me, when you look at the Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic is unquestionably their best player. But when you think about the Denver Nuggets and why they've been such a legitimate threat, it's not just because of Jokic. It's because we've looked at a guy in Jamal Murray and we've said this is not just a guy who plays like a borderline all-star throughout the regular season, but this is a guy who in the postseason elevates his level of play to superstar status. This is a guy who transforms himself from an above-average starter to an absolute elite all-team, all-NBA team guard in the NBA. So when I think about Jamal Murray, this is absolutely crushing because he is what made that 1-2 punch legitimate with Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. He is what fortifies that starting dynamic duo. That's how they match up against the Clippers. That's how they match up against the Jazz. And when you think about who the ultimate X factor was for that team, you know what you're going to get from Nikola Jokic. Mike Malone is a good coach. They've got savvy veterans. Michael Porter Jr. is still ascending. He's a young player. Jamal Murray was the guy to take them over the top. He was the reason why they beat the Jazz in that epic all-time 7-game first-round series last year in the bubble. Took them 7 games. Jamal Murray was offsetting all the heroics by Donovan Mitchell by pouring in heroics of his own. He dropped over 50 points, 2 games, 42 points in another game. This was when Donovan Mitchell was dropping 57, 51 points in games, 44 points in another. And Jamal Murray led their team in points, in assists. He was absolutely crucial and the sole reason why they won that series. And then you look at the next round against the Clippers, and he was the reason that they prevailed ultimately in Game 7. He dropped 40 points in Game 7 against the Clippers, 12 points in the fourth quarter. And sure, Nikola Jokic, again, was the best player, but when you looked at, okay, who is the guard on the Denver Nuggets that's going to offset what Paul George gave you, what Kawhi gave the Clippers, it was Jamal Murray. He was the ultimate mismatch. He controlled the tempo. He controlled the pace. He set guys up. And when I think about Jamal Murray, the guy that I think most about is actually Rajon Rondo, because to me, Jamal Murray is like a souped-up version of Rajon Rondo. We think about Rondo in glowing terms, and yet he's averaged this year for the Atlanta Hawks 4 points, 2 rebounds before he got traded to the Clippers. Why? Because he's a winning player. In the postseason, he elevates his level of play, his status, to an all-star level. Rajon Rondo, for his career, averaging 10 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 8 assists on 32% shooting. In the postseason for his career, those numbers spike up: 13 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists. We saw last year in the bubble, he shot 40% from the three-point line for the Lakers last year, hit some big shots for LA down the stretch. In fact, during his time with the Boston Celtics in the 2011-2012 season, when he really took off, he averaged 12 points, 12 assists, and 5 rebounds during the regular season. In the postseason, those numbers spiked up: 17 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds. This is Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray, this regular season, 21 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists, or about 5 assists. And in the postseason last year, he's given you 26.5 points per game, 6.5 assists, 5 rebounds, 45% shooting from the three-point line, over 50% from the floor. That's what you expect now when we watch Jamal Murray. And that was just in 19 games. So he's having the same kind of Rajon Rondo effect in the postseason, which is he's no longer just an average starting point guard. He elevates to an all-star, to a superstar caliber player, which is how they've been able to attain so much success. And so in sports, we always talk about who are winning players. What players have winning intangibles? And when we think about the Denver Nuggets and the guy who most possesses those winning tangibles, the things you can't value, the things you can't measure and you can't quantify just by stats, but when you watch the impact he has on the game, that's Jamal Murray. The stats don't reflect the type of impact and his type of worth that he has on the Denver Nuggets. This is a guy who can single-handedly drop 50 points again in the postseason. That's what you need. That's the type of performance that is going to be required to knock off some of these teams. And then the other piece of it is what players make you contenders and what players make you relevant. There's a difference. There are a lot of really good players. Zach LaVine is one of my favorite players with the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls hadn't been relevant really until they traded for Nikola Vucevic. And even then, they're not necessarily relevant, but they are really talented players. Nikola Jokic is the face of the Denver Nuggets. We understand that. But the guy that makes them relevant, the guy that enhanced their view, the guy that added that mystique to their team was Jamal Murray. He's the guy when he's playing at the all-star caliber player. That's what transforms the Denver Nuggets from just a regular pretender to a legitimate title contender. And then they made the trade for Aaron Gordon, and it looked like they were finally going to have the depth that was required, the depth that they were going to need to make a really good run. They were really well positioned, and this just couldn't have come at a worse time. And unfortunately for them, I don't see a situation now where without Jamal Murray, they're going to make the NBA Finals or even the Western Conference Finals. I just don't see it. I don't think they're better than the Clippers. I don't think they're better than the Lakers. They're not better than the Jazz, especially not now. They're probably not better than the Phoenix Suns. And honestly, the Portland Trailblazers and the Dallas Mavericks may also be better. The only chance that they have is if Aaron Gordon, if Michael Porter Jr. and Will Barton all of a sudden start to step up and elevate the level of play, not only of themselves, but of their teammates, because that's what Jamal Murray was doing, was setting up his teammates. And now you're asking Will Barton to be a facilitator. You're asking Michael Porter Jr., who has the ultimate green light, who unfortunately up until this point in his career, I don't want to categorize him on a holistic level as a selfish player, but he is pretty self-centered when it comes to basketball. Every time he gets the ball, he's trying to shoot. He's not looking to assist. He's not looking to facilitate. Aaron Gordon is happy to be in a winning environment. He's just happy to have been pulled out of that firestorm in Orlando. So he'll be a team player, but that's what Jamal Murray was providing. That calm, that composure, running the offensive sets. And this is just a devastating blow. Again, I love Nikola Jokic. He's clearly the face of the franchise, but the guy that has taken them over the top has been Jamal Murray. And now we're not going to see him. And it's a shame for basketball. It's a shame because that's what made the Western Conference so intriguing, was the Nuggets. Where were they going to fall? Were they going to stay at the 4 seed? Would they have to play the Lakers in the first round? Would they slip a little bit and have to play the Clippers in the first round this year? So many intriguing matchups and storylines, and now we're deprived of that. I still think they have a chance to maybe win a first-round matchup, depending on who they play. Maybe if it's the Phoenix Suns, they have a chance. But this is a crushing blow to a team that legitimately had Western Conference Finals and potentially NBA final prospects on their horizon. That's how good and deep this team really is.